Hi, class. Today's lecture is going to talk about Chapter 14, which is presentation aids. Your informative speech requires a PowerPoint or a Prezi presentation. Either software will be fine. So this chapter is very important. And this link here actually has a funny take on PowerPoints and discusses things you can avoid. So let's get started. So visual aids offer speakers several advantages. They can make things clearer for your audience. You saw this with the Night Terrors PowerPoint, where it was able to make things a little bit clearer and also help retain our interest. Visual aids can promote interest and motivation. Presentation aids can also help listeners process and retain information, and they can enhance your credibility if done effectively. Visual aids can also improve your speaker's persuasiveness. This might not be as important for your informative speech, but for your persuasive speech, it'll be extremely important. Two other things that aren't up here that you should be aware of. Visual aids can actually help you combat stage fright. They can help you because you're paying attention to the PowerPoint as well as the audience. And finally, they can increase the interest of a speaker's information. So there are different kinds of visual aids I'm going to go over in the next slides. But before I get started with those, I just want to talk about objects and models for a second, because objects and models are in addition to your PowerPoint, not required, but a lot of times objects and models can help enhance what you're informing us on. So props models, they could be live or inanimate objects that capture attention or illustrate the main points of your speech. Models are three-dimensional scale-size representations of an object. So in most cases, if you're thinking about using an object or model, keep them hidden until you're ready to use it. Make sure that they're big enough for everyone to see, if applicable, and practice your speech using the prop or the model. That is very important. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about are photos and drawings. You can put photos and drawings into your PowerPoint, and they can be a great advantage to a speaker. So these pictures are two-dimensional representations: photographs, line drawings, diagrams, maps, posters. Diagrams, they can visually explain how something works or operates. Maps are great if you're maybe informing us on a country or a city. Maps help listeners visualize geographic areas and understand relationships and proportions of one thing to something else in different areas. So here is a great example from your text on what a photo can do to enhance an informative speech. So this student is doing an informative speech on dyslexia, but instead of just telling us what a person from dyslexia has to deal with, they show us through this image. It says, this is what a person with dyslexia might see when reading this sentence. This is a great way to illustrate the problems that people with dyslexia have to overcome. The next thing I'll talk about is graphs. And in the upcoming slides, I'll talk about a few different types of graphs that you could use. Graphs are a good way to clarify and simplify statistics. They show statistical trends and patterns. So the first type is a line graph. Line graphs are best used to illustrate statistical trends. A line graph uses points connected by lines to demonstrate how something changes or fluctuates over time. So here's an example from your text, a very clean, clear line graph. It uses color well, it uses fonts well. For this line graph, you can see that it's the percentage of personal spending. Over time, healthcare spending has gone up and food spending has gone down. The next one is a pie graph. Pie graphs are well suited for demonstrating distributional patterns. So they highlight segments of a circle to show distribution. Now, here's an example. This is a real example I found on the web. The source was the UCLA Center for Communications. Now, if you look at this, they have a problem here. Pie graphs should always add up to 100. So if you look at this one, it does not. You can lose your credibility here if you don't add up to 100. Here's two much different ones from your text. It shows women's in the workforce. They are comparing women in the workforce from the 1900s to 2014. Bar graphs are effective for showing comparisons between two or more items. So a bar graph shows bars of varying lengths to compare quantities or magnitudes. The bars may be arranged vertically, horizontally, whatever you think is best. So, and when creating a bar graph or a line graph, you need to label both axes and start them at 0, compare only like variables, and then put no more than 2 lines or data on one line graph. So if you look at this bar graph here, and you can tell this bar graph is aged a little bit, the top 3 social networking sites, Facebook, YouTube, and MySpace. I don't even think MySpace is still around, but on this graph it is. You can see that without even looking at the numbers, how much more popular, even back at this time, that Facebook was to YouTube or MySpace. Here's another one from your text I thought was a really nice one. They are doing median household income, unemployment, and college degrees based on race. So you can see they took 3 very, different types of numbers, and just by using color and bar graph, they can tell a story very easily. Charts are a good choice when a speaker needs to summarize large blocks of information. Usually as a list. Helps listeners visualize information, shows steps of a process, and they can do it in a simple and clear way. You can either make your own charts in PowerPoint, or you can use charts from the web and then just cite them. So again, here is one from your text. I took this directly from your text. It's saying regions of birth and the percentage of U.S. immigrants. And you see what they did here. They did not list them alphabetically. That wouldn't make sense. Instead, they listed them by the most immigrants in the U.S. to the least. So, you want to think about that. How will you list your charts logically? You can also use videos, and you can embed videos into your PowerPoints. Videos can be extremely effective as a visual aid. Just make sure you follow these rules for your presentation. Keep it short. I'm not grading the video, I'm grading you. Also, you're going to lose us. If a video is more than 2 minutes long, you're going to lose your audience, so keep them short. Use the clip, explain what you're going to be talking about or what you're going to be showing before you start the clip. Integrate it smoothly, and definitely, avoid low resolution. You'll lose credibility if we can't see what it is. So preparing visual aids, prepare them well in advance. That's the most important probably of the 7 basic guidelines that are talked about in your text. Speakers should keep visual aids very simple. They should make sure that visual aids are large enough font and limit the text. I always talk about using the 6x6 rule. No more than 6 words in a line, no more than 6 bullets on a screen. Other things you want to think about: use fonts effectively. Don't use different colors. Don't use Comic Sans unless you're informing us on maybe preschool care. Don't use colors that will be very jarring. Green on red, unless you're informing us on Christmas, not good. Bright yellows, stay away from. You want to have dark fonts on light background, light fonts on a dark background. Also, use image strategically. This link here, I would highly suggest you look at it. It's a real PowerPoint on an informative speech on stress. I would say that every slide she does wrong. So it's a really good way to look at what not to do. All right, so that's all. That's really what I want you to know from chapter 14. So now that you had this, you can go start building your PowerPoint and let me know any questions you may have.